Hello, 5D. We're talking about graphics in the media. There are so many ways you can use some of this information. This is another one of my favorite sections to talk about because you can use this in everyday life, whether the media to you, by the way, it's no one thing, whether it's TV or what you find on Facebook or what you see on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, TikTok, I don't know what they have on there, besides fun videos about cats or something, but you can use this stuff. This is real life stuff that you can actually use. What a concept in a math class, right? So we're going to look at 5D and talk about kind of different graphics that you might see, how to understand them, and how to call them out if what they're showing isn't correct. And that does happen. You saw that in 5C with the pie chart. Oh, I need to get some mathematicians at that station. All right, so let's talk about number one. You have the sheet in front of you, or you have it on your computer. Again, I highly recommend doing this with me, just like you would do if you were in class, because when you're hearing it, when you're seeing it, and then doing it, all of those things will actually help you learn things. It's like you remember 20% of things you see, then it's 50% of things this is something like this, 50% of things you see and hear, and then it's like 80% of things you see, hear, and do yourself. So trying to get you into that 80% range. All right, let's talk about number one. Let me make sure the video's going. Can you imagine I'm just talking to myself in my guest room for like 2 straight minutes? Could happen. Let's look at number one. Examine figure 5.12a, which shows the median earnings for men and women for 8 different levels of education. Okay. Oh, I'm yawning. It's like 8 o'clock at night when I'm recording this after I ate a huge dinner. Smart idea. All right, let's look at the graph. In A, and you can go on down the line, professional degree is higher than a doctoral degree, and then you can go on down the line. Of course, as you go down, right, the general trend is that as you're less educated, you make less money. And we can probably make a generalization and say, generally, that is how it works. Of course, there are plenty of exceptions, but we're just making generalizations here. So part A, briefly describe, I just did it. I took part A. Briefly describe how earnings vary with educational attainment. So as you get more education, what happens? Generally, you make more money, right? That's all they're looking for. More education equals more money, generally. All right, what about B? What is it? The percentage increase in earnings for women when a professional degree is earned, when a professional degree is earned compared to a bachelor's degree. So what is the percentage increase in earnings for women when a professional degree is earned compared to, or it doesn't have to say is earned, when a professional degree is compared to a bachelor's degree. Sorry, I don't know why I can't read right now. So we're talking about professional compared to a bachelor's. Remember when we talked about percent, I'm going to erase this. Remember when we talked about percent increase and decrease, we talked about the change divided by the original. So for percent increase, the formula, and you'll use this in life, I promise, I've been using it every day lately. Percent increase is the change divided by the original. We kind of talked about this with like relative change. So the absolute change would be on top, and then the whole thing would kind of be like the relative change. As the coronavirus cases keep going up, I keep just wondering for my own, I don't know, weird knowledge, what is the percent increase in cases, not just the absolute change. So I've been using this literally every day. So the percent increase in earnings for women when a professional degree is compared to a bachelor's degree. So they want to say, we know since we're talking about percent increase here, that our number is going to have to go up. So it does get a little tricky, I think, where you're trying to pick, okay, well, the change and which one is the original. Well, if they want a percent increase, then we're talking about going from a bachelor's degree up to a professional degree. right? That's the only way we're going to get an increase. If we went from a professional degree down to a bachelor's degree, we'd have a decrease in earnings. Therefore, I know I'm comparing that to the bachelor's degree. It's going to have to be a professional minus a bachelor's over a bachelor's, right? Because in order for this top to give me a positive value, it has to go in this order. It has to be this minus this, and these two things always have to be the same. I know that's a little confusing. It's hard sometimes to pick out what goes where, but in order for this whole thing to give me a positive value, I have to have professional minus a bachelor's. And I know since this is bachelor's, this also has to be bachelor's, right? I'm comparing how much more money I'm making to what I made when I just had a bachelor's degree, if that makes sense. And again, we're just talking about women. So women with a professional degree generally make $80,718. And with a bachelor's degree, women generally make $49,108. Right? Women are the lighter orange. And then the bachelor's was on the bottom. That's the same number, the $49,108. So do the math. Go ahead, subtract the top. Pause the video if you haven't done it. 31,610 over the same 49,108. But they want a percent increase, so divide those, you'll get a decimal, and then take that decimal and change it into a percent. I got about 64.4%. That is the percent increase when I have a bachelor's degree and then I attain a professional degree as a woman. Any questions on that? Let me know. Okay, so now they want us to do it for men in part C. And what do you guys notice, you guys and you ladies? What do you notice about this chart? Just look at the chart in general. I'm stepping away from C for just 1 second. What do you notice about the chart at every single educational level? Who makes more? It's ridiculous, right? It's the men, of course it is. They do. So let's do the same thing for number 1, part C that we just did. So now we're talking about a professional degree for a man compared to a bachelor's degree for a man. We're going to use the same thing. It's the professional minus the bachelor's over the bachelor's. Right? This is the change, and in order for this to be a positive number, an increase, we have to have the bigger number minus the smaller number. So it's something around like 119, what? 474. Pause the video for a second and go ahead and fill in these numbers for men. All right, over 66196. Do the math up top. You should get 53,278 over this, and when you divide it as a percentage, you should get 80.5%. I know I scooted on through that, but if you have questions, just send me an email. So women had an increase of 64.4%, but men have an increase of 80.5%. All right, let's look at D. This one's, I don't know that I love the wording on D, but that's okay. We'll talk about it. Whoa. In part D, it says, what is the percentage difference in earnings for men and women with a bachelor's degree? There are 2 correct answers here as far as I'm concerned. You can compare men to women and say that men make this much more. Or you can compare women to men and say women make this much less. You choose however you want to do it. That's fine. Should we get the same answer if we do that? No, right? Because we're talking about, okay, the amount of money either relative to how much a woman makes or relative to how much a man makes. And that's very important. We already have said that the men make more at every single level. So let's do them both just to see. If I want to say, I'm going to talk about the men's salary minus the women's salary, and I'm going to compare it to the women's salary. Again, we're talking about at a bachelor's degree, so that's the 66,196 minus the 49,108. Sorry, I'm squeaking it in. Compared to women. Go ahead and do that math, and then get the decimal, and then change it to a percent, and tell me what you get. Tell your dog or whoever's in the room with you. For this one, you should get 34.8%. So if I ask you to write this in a complete sentence, what you would need to say is, men make 34.8% more than women. With a bachelor's degree, excuse me, gotta finish that. With a bachelor's degree. And that would be a correct sentence. So can't we just say, okay, women make 34.8% less than a man with a bachelor's degree? No. Let's talk about why not. Let's compare. Let's say, okay, let's take what women make and subtract men from it, and then we'll compare it to a man's salary. Notice, we're going to get the same number up top, except just this time, this number that you got up here is going to be negative because we're subtracting them in reverse order, right? Instead of 3 minus 2 to get a positive 1, it's like we're doing 2 minus 3, so we're going to get a negative 1 or a negative whatever you got up top here. But we're comparing it to something different. This number was what part of this number? Well, it was 34.8% of it. Men make 34.8% more when compared to a woman's salary. But now we're saying, okay, well, what's the difference? But now we're going to compare it to a man's salary. So do you think the percentage is going to be bigger or smaller? Well, it's going to be a negative number. But do you think like just the overall percentage is going to be bigger or smaller? Do the math, try it out. It's definitely going to have to be smaller, right? When the denominator of a fraction gets bigger and the numerator stays the same, the overall number will become smaller. For example, if I say I have 1/2 of a cake, and then I say, okay, well now I only have 1/3 of a cake. The denominator gets bigger, right? 3 is bigger than 2, but the overall fraction is less, right? I'd rather have 1/2 of a cake than 1/3. It would be more cake, essentially. So when you do this all out, the number you get up here is the same. Compare that to a man's salary, which is a 66,196, and you should get negative 25.8%. So if I asked you to write this out in a complete sentence, you would have to say something along the lines of women make 25.8% less than men with, I'm abbreviating, bachelor's degrees. Womp womp. All right, that's it for number 1. Go ahead and, well, you don't have to pause it. I'm just going to erase. Go ahead and read through number 2. You guys surprised by that? Probably not. We know it's a fact. Number 2, interesting.